It's 8 p.m. You know what time it is. This just in, the online show where we discuss the latest international news, the big topics, the things that are dominating all of our group chats, as well as sit down with some of the industry professionals and leading players in the sporting industry around the world. I am Marsha Boyce. Thank you for joining us. Of course, there is Justin Marvel. And once again, we have a special guest with us this evening. We're rolling out the heavy hitters one by one. Justin, you can do the honors.
I don't even know how to introduce this one. When we met years and years ago, I knew Craig as an event manager with the Miami Heat, but he's now gone on to become a professor in this sports entertainment industry. So without further ado, we have Craig Skilling. Welcome, Craig. And first, how's it been for you?
Oh, everything has been fine. First, thank you guys for having me today. It's been a long time, for real. It's definitely been a long time.
It has been, Craig. Like as I said, I don't even know when the last you came. Like that's when you brought, I think, Rafer Alston to the island, right?
Well, we came a couple of times after that. When I left the Miami Heat, I started my own business, and we ended up getting involved with entertainment. So I've been there a couple of times with a few different artists. We've touched the island, yes, a couple of times after that.
Well, first, Craig, as we do on this show when we bring on guests, we want to know, how are you keeping in this current pandemic? Like, how's the situation been treating you and your family?
Oh, my family's wonderful at this moment as can be, right? We're really just trying to adapt. When you have young kids that, they have their devices and they still have a backyard and things like that, they've been fortunate enough. So I don't think they've really felt the true effects of quarantine, right? But at the same token, we pray for all those that have been impacted, around the world. So it's something that we were talking about this offline, staying busy and staying relevant and, reading and really honing in on your skills. That's something that I've been doing myself personally.
Hold on, Marsha, before you go. I know you want to get in here quickly. As I said, I've lost touch a bit with Craig. So please, at first, as I've been promoting you all this time as a former Miami Heat event coordinator or event manager, but I think I've been doing the service. So let the guys know, tell us about Craig Skilling in the sports entertainment industry.
Oh man, that would be tough to give you. How much time do we have?
Oh, we have.
Yeah, he said we have time. I'll take you on the journey and give you the Cliff Note version. But I was having this conversation the other day with, I don't like name dropping, but this guy is a good friend as well, and I've known him for some years, and he's a tour DJ for Jamie Foxx. And we're sitting back and we're going through our background, and we're just, he was speaking to one of my classes, and I'm like, Mikey, at certain times we have to just stop and reflect, because you really don't appreciate some of the things that you've done and accomplished, right? Because you're going, you're on the go, you're ambitious, what's next, and sometimes you just have to stop, breathe, and say, wow, I had a chance to do that. So, I take the humble pie, but the journey was one that started back in college. I wanted to be involved in the business of sports. It took me a while to realize that. I'm a little vertically challenged, even though that would change now. But I realized basketball wasn't going to be my bread and butter, so to speak, in terms of playing professionally. So, you pivot and you think about what's next. And for me, out of college, once the light bulb went off that there was an opportunity to work in the business of sports, I went to undergraduate school at Florida State University. My brother and I were there, and my younger brother. So funny enough, he ended up getting accepted there. And I was in community college back in Miami. And I'm like, hold on a second. You're at Florida State? I was supposed to go to that school. And I ended up not going. I skipped school in high school, senior day, and a recruiter came from Florida State, Pat Kennedy. And he came to look at myself and another fella, and we missed. And so Florida State was always in the back of my head. And as such, as things would have it, it lit a fire in my butt, and I got my act together. Right. And I ended up transferring over there, joining my brother. And I finished, and I was focused, and did 2.5 years. But I think we spoke today, and rest in peace, Don Shula. And we found out that news of that legendary coach passing, one of my first jobs in sports internship was working for the Miami Dolphins. So I was a junior in college and I didn't want to waste my summer. I had to find out, I'm getting in some shape or form. I'm going to get in. And the Miami Heat weren't ready for me yet at that time. I was trying to get in with the Miami Heat. Basketball was the love. So I ended up working in special events for the Dolphins. So I'm at training camp. We spoke early on this via text, and I don't have a story to share on Don Shula, but somebody that has that aura. You met him so many times, you saw him in passing, and you're just in awe of a legendary individual. So that was my summer internship. Fast forward a year later, and I'm getting ready to graduate, and I find out the NBA is coming to my campus. What? The NBA is coming? Are you serious? Now I got to do this. So I'm telling my roommates, we have maybe 500 students in our program. There's a lot so everybody else is hearing about it that might have that interest. On top of that, they're only recruiting 30 students from 30 schools across the nation. So I tell this to my students all the time. How do you separate yourself from the masses? And what do? I honed in on my skills. I said, well, let me do some research. What is happening right now? Well, the NBA was expanding. Marsh, you can appreciate this from a sports marketing standpoint. They're expanding, global expansion. We're going to China. China's this. We're doing all of that. So my whole interview focused on global expansion and where you're going. I'm not seeing things for today. I'm seeing things for 10 years down the road. I was told that got me in for the second interview. And by the time the second interview was over the phone, once I got you on the phone, I think I'm the only one that can mess that up. Because now I'm ready. The pro skills charm is coming in, and I'm going to give you my island background, and we're going to have some fun. And I was fortunate to get that opportunity, and a lot of things changed for me after that. That's when the world just opened up, and I saw all the possibilities. And what's funny is I got the internship to now it's a job, but it's an associate program. You're being paid for this. And back then, you would have worked for free. It says, Diddy would say, go get the cheesecake, go work for, you would do it in those days.
Yep.
I was fortunate I was going to be paid, a good amount of money back then. So I had 1 month before it started. And look at how small the world is. I was on the scout team for Florida State University. And this means you're going to try to make it on the actual college team, right? A big D1 school. That wasn't the case. I was playing against the women's team, right? We were getting gear and all the stuff that marketers would give you, but we were playing against our girls. I had a newfound respect for women's sports back then. I'm going to date myself. This is 2001 we're talking about. So, fast forward, I found out the coach for back in Miami for the women's team. We used to have a women's basketball team. They were called the Miami Soul. So I go ahead.
Yes, I remember that.
You remember that?
That's a long time ago.
Long time. Yeah, they're now called the Connecticut Sun. So I find out the coach, Coach Metters, shout out to Coach Metters, she was there. And I reached out right away. Coach, I have 1 month before I go to New York, where I'm originally from, and I'm going to go ahead and, work with the NBA, do my internship and player development. Is there an opportunity for me to get in? Because my plan, I was already formulating my plan. I'm coming back to Miami to work. I'm coming back to work for the Heat. Got to get in. Graduating, there's no student loans. I'm not falling in that trap. I am going to have my career. I'm going to have my insurance. All that stuff is happening. I'm setting it up. So luckily, I was able to get in, and I used that 1 month to meet everybody. I shook hands in the time when we could still shake hands. And how are you? Craig Skilling. Craig Skilling, nice to meet you. Craig Skilling. And that was it. So I got in with the NBA. And, I was there for about 6 months. And great relationships. Loved that department. But this is where entertainment started to come into play. I'm starting to realize it's not just about sports, right? If I had an umbrella and I opened it up, and I wouldn't open it up inside, right? My island people have superstition. Can't do that. Granny said, don't do that. But if I were to open it up, and each of those spokes under that umbrella represents our industry. The top of that umbrella would be entertainment. And what we're doing now is media, and then we have sports, and we have theater, we have film, television, all of that. So I saw that from working in the NBA. I saw the various departments, being able to sit down with the late David Stern for lunch as a group. Oh, that was amazing. So, to see this big beast of a machine and how they operate, how many departments, and I'm in the city and you're taking the train and you're going in, it just matured me. And I loved it. And if I could have, stayed on, I probably could have, but the girlfriend at the time was down here, turned into the fiance and turned into all that stuff happened, right? And, I knew I was coming back to South Florida, and good enough that I made those relationships with the Heat, but I kind of had to take a seat back because I remember a Jamaican lady who I just reconnected with after 15 years the other day. See what quarantine gave you the opportunity. Her name is Marlene Hendricks. Marlene is now the senior vice president for guest experience for the Hornets. And I reached out to her to talk about The Last Dance and working for Michael Jordan and all of that. And we reconnected like it was yesterday. But she was the person I had to tell her. I said, if not for you, Marlene, Craig Skilling isn't who he is today. You got me my first job coming back for the Heat. It was a part-time sales job. But it was, for me, it was a foot in the door. And now I knew. You guys remember the movie Boiler Room? You might be young, or some of you may remember it. It was a room smaller than my office room. It's a small room, right? And old phone, you pick up the phone, you had a list. Alonzo Mourning, let me set it up for you. Alonzo Mourning, right, Hall of Fame guy, he had a kidney disease. He was hurt. We didn't have Dwayne Wade yet. So we're calling people, trying to get them to come to these games. And everybody's hanging up. No, we're not interested. The team is 2-23 to start. For me, I could have said, you know what, that's it. Chuck it up. No more for me. Let me go find a real corporate job. Let me do something. That wasn't the motto. For me, it was I met those other people. I gave myself about a 5-year plan. Ultimately, I wanted to work in basketball operations. And for those that aren't familiar in working in professional sports, most of the teams are like this. You have the team operations. You have the business side. So I was on the business side, and you have sales, you have group sales, you have corporate sales, right? You have your accounting, you have your marketing, all of that is on the business side. But I wanted to be around the athletes, not because I was a groupie, but I was a former athlete. I had just worked for the NBA. I had athletes that knew who I was, that either I went to school with or whatever the case is. They were putting in a word for me, but there wasn't an opportunity. And I share this with my students all the time. Today, I can call Andy Ellisberg is still in basketball operations, Miami Heat. Kenny McCraney, shout out to those guys, still in basketball operations. There's only a few people in those roles. I didn't want to be a coach. I wanted to work in player development on that end. So, it was good for me to see that. And teaching, that came about a little bit while after. So I gave my 5 years. And ultimately I stopped as being a group event manager, and I got a chance to use my creative hat and, plan various activities on the court. So, you wanted to do a birthday party, you wanted to have a sweet night, something that we started back then. We called it the Court of Dreams. As a high school kid, where do you dream to play? On an NBA floor. So we would go ahead and we'd reach out, and that was my forte. I would get all of these guys and, the various girls and the different programs. I would say, hey, have you ever played in the Miami Heat court, an NBA court, a facility? Don't you have that dream as a coach and or your athletes? All right, well, get 200 tickets, pull it together, and I'll make it happen for you. And that was my go-to, and I loved it. I loved creating the experience. I loved the entertainment part of it because I had a lot of dance groups that I dealt with. There's a young lady named Montana Tucker. You guys can look her up right now. Shout out to Montana. And another one that I reconnected. You find time to reconnect with everybody. Back then, she was a little girl, a little teenager. Her mom, they had a dance group. So what I would do is I would get this dance group, and they would perform. They wanted to perform during halftime of the game. But watch this. The mom would come up to me after the game and say, hey, Craig, if any of the players, the athletes, or if you know of any charity events going on, please let me know. Hey, sure. Dwayne Wade, we now have Wade. Haslam is there, all these guys. Zoe still has Zoe Summer Groove. I'm referring them to all of these amazing events. So I would go to the event to make sure they're taken care of. But I'm doing this just out of, you're my client. Why not go above and beyond for you? After the events, after they would perform, the mom would come up to me, and she would go and she would slide something in my hand and then close my hand. And I would go back and I would open it up. $100 bill. Okay, Michelle, I can't take it. Michelle, if you're watching, I love you. You've heard the story before. I would give it back. I would say, I can't take it. It's okay. She was like, no, 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 take it. Okay, if you insist. So imagine me. I'm doing that I have incentive to want to find these things for you. So you know what I ended up realizing that I was doing? I was acting as their agent.
Yeah.
I was acting as an agent. And that got me my start in entertainment, because now I would do a concert event, and now I'm meeting Flo Rida, I'm meeting Pitbull, I'm meeting Trey Songz, I'm meeting all these various acts, and I'm connecting with them. And now I'm from the Caribbean. My mom is from Barbados, where you guys are from. My dad is from Antigua. And I would frequent the islands, and I would say, hey, my gosh, wouldn't it be great if we could bring so-and-so down here for a show, for a nightclub event? And that's what would happen. And we would start to route the acts. And then from there, I did my event around that same time and leaving the heat. And, education fell on my lap. That just fell on my hat. I started my business. And while I started my business, I wanted the flexibility. I was doing too many things, and it was tough to juggle a full-time job, working the games, your late nights and your weekends, everything was shot. So I was a guest speaker like this for somebody I went to graduate school with. I tell you, it's not all about what you know in our industry. It's who you know and who knows
Who
you.
you know, yeah.
Right? So you had to make an impact. It's a small knit world. If Justin and I had a falling out years ago, we wouldn't be doing this today. But you cultivate, you have social media to follow, and I applaud everybody that's doing good things. Sometimes you don't take the time to pick up the phone like we used to say it, because of the fast-paced nature of our industry, and life hits us. But I was able to do that. I was a guest speaker. Next thing you know, she said, Craig, I need you over here. I need you to come back and, you need to come teach. I'm like, I never thought about that, teach. But I had a master's degree, all in my Cliff Note version. I had time to go back to school. And I said, well, let me utilize this degree. That's why I'm able to do this. And it wasn't a quick thing. I had to take a few steps back. I bought season tickets from the Heat. I wanted to make sure I didn't, if I'm leaving the Miami Heat, I want to make sure I'm good. I don't want to ask you for tickets or anything like that. There was a little bit of hate in me at that time, because they ended up going to the finals that year. They ended up going, yep. They went to the finals. I left the Heat. I gave my resignation. I think that year I got married. I bought my first house. All these things happened in a span of like a month. I did an event in the island of Antigua. It wasn't Barbados yet. We did Barbados the year after. We did an event with Karan Butler. Shout out to Karan Butler. He actually wrote about it in his book, Tough Juice. So Karan.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I'll go read that just shortly then.
Yeah, we took him over there. We took him to Antigua with the Heat dancers and another guy. His parents were from Antigua, Speedy Claxton, who's now a coach at Hofstra. So we took them over. We get off the plane. Now we're returning. As soon as we find out, Karan picks up his phone, and we're like, what's going on? He just found out he was traded for Shaquille O'Neal. So that was it. This is 2005, 2006 season. He'd end up going on to win a championship. But Karan got to go ahead and play with Kobe Bryant, right? And in that meant a lot for him. And I've watched his journey, and we've been in touch, and I love what he's doing on his side with his brand and, life after basketball. So, that's in a nutshell. It's really the network. It's a lot of the consulting. It's building your brand and honing in. I spent years as a tour manager, as a booking agent while I'm teaching. So I found that niche to be able to, Johnson & Wales University, to teach over there while handling. I was a career advisor. I was an adjunct first before I was full-time faculty. It took me almost 7 years before I became full-time faculty. And I tell the students, it's not an overnight thing, right? But while I was building it, I wasn't stopping what I was doing. I was still in the sports industry. I was still consulting with the NBA, working on over 12 NBA All-Stars as an event manager. So I'm traveling. I'm staying up to date with what's happening and current in our league. I've been to 3 Super Bowls, working them. So, we still consult. We had the opportunity to do this through the company. And I dissolved my entertainment company about 3 years ago. And I started another consulting company just because it was more about branding me, branding you, branding us. Everybody on this call right now, even the gentleman I met who's behind the scenes and producing the show, the people that are watching this, we're all influencers in our own right. Whether you're micro, macro, right, celebrity, whatever it may be, there's different types of influencers, and my company now is called the Influencer Brand, and that's really what it was the focus on. So that brings you present day as best as I can. I now lead our sports entertainment event management program at the university. I've spent, this is now 15 years at Johnson & Wales University. We have 4 campuses, but now I have students that I'm happy to say, I have had an impact on, and who've had an impact on me. And, I love what they're doing. I see they're international. They're working, for major sports clubs, marketing firms, agencies. I have a student that I'm thinking about right now because she touched base the other day. She works with Dwayne Wade and, his camp. And I remember placing her in that internship. And shout out Maya. Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot, Maya, if you end up seeing this. But yeah, this is where you can get to a point where you see it. They keep you on your toes. I'm not stopping anytime soon. So we're still, building the brand, and, we've all been hit, hard education, but everybody as a whole. So now we have to reinvent ourselves even more, and reaching out to the students. And I have this new passion for esports because that is the new wave, right?
Yep.
So that is what we're seeing. And that is where the industry is thriving right now. That's when everything was shut down. What was still happening? You still saw them going to virtual games, right? You still saw the NFL jumping in there. We saw soccer, what you guys call football and all that. It was happening. So it's not going anywhere. It's going to only grow. And it's the new wave that we have to make sure we're watching. So that's I probably went a little bit more than Cliff Notes, but but at least it gives you a good body of work. And even hearing it and saying it myself, it comes off so fluid. I tell my students who have 30 seconds to make an impression. That was a little bit longer, but than the 30 seconds. But it really gives you a good, and your audience and the viewers after the fact, that it's not overnight and it's still going, and there's opportunities in it, but you have to work at it. You have to find your niche within our industry and where it's going, and where you feel comfortable, you go and you run with it.
Okay, Craig, let me just jump right in here.
What's up, Marsha?
As a practitioner, as an academic, even as a sport fan, of course, we've all been watching the impact of the global pandemic on the sporting industry. From your perspective, what has been the most surprising thing in terms of how sporting bodies, whether that is leagues, teams, etc., are adapting to the changes that have come?
So the esports brings that up, right? The virtual games, the virtual events, that's been the biggest adaptation. For the player side, not on the league and owner side, it's given them an opportunity to hone in on their brand, their individual brands. I've seen them all still, how many of these we're seeing a lot of the live streams, a lot of opportunities for you to still connect your endorsement deal and still give them the airtime they need. So we've seen that more than ever before, and social media affords that opportunity. What's challenging is on the league side, because there's no answer yet. There's been a mandate for the NBA. Tomorrow I have a call with Joe Branch. He is the assistant GM for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I'm going to ask him that same question. May 8th has been the date where they've been allowed to go back. But some teams have said, you know what, we're going to wait. We're going to play it by our state and our local municipalities, right? And that's the right answer. So to say in a nutshell, we still don't know. This is so fluid, right? But the plan is they're going to still repurpose content. You're going to see that from the television deals that are in there, right? Yeah. So they're repurposing content on their major, whatever station or network that they have. Everybody's going to do that. They're still going to start to utilize the players. We saw the NFL, National Football League, do their draft at home. It gave us an opportunity to really connect one-on-one with the owner. He needed that more than ever because he was getting a bad rap prior. That helped him. He got a lot of brownie points for being the homebody guy. They went ahead and they announced for next year to see, they're going to host it again in Vegas if that happens. But, and my apologies on the long-winded answer, but it's so fluid, right? How about the concert industry and for the events? They don't know. I don't think we may not see another live performance till 2021. So what do? Do you just sit back and say, I'm going to wait till January next year? Well, I saw the artist, what's his name? I try to stay current on these guys, but the name, not Ty Dolla Signs. Oh my gosh. He had his own show. He just did something really big. Well, there's Travis Scott is one. He did a virtual concert in the game, in a video game called Fortnite.
Yeah.
Yes, we know
27 million viewers, right, over 5 days. So add that up. It worked out to be over 5 days. They had about almost 50-something million impressions. When can anybody say in 5 days, 5 events, you got a chance to get that type of audience, right? That's a huge audience. That was big, but I'm still trying to remember the guy who did a virtual concert on YouTube. Talk to me, baby. Oh, it's coming to me.
That's Marsha's side now.
Marsha, come on, Marsha, give us a bald head guy. He had a quarantine radio he was doing that he became really popular for.
Oh, yes. Oh, dear. The name is slipping me now.
Oh, my gosh.
We're here dating ourselves, clearly.
They're dating ourselves, but I was watching him, but the name is failing me right now. If it comes back, I'll throw it out there. But he was able to go ahead and do that. We're going to see more of those. They're building an app with YouTube to be able to go ahead and, what is it? Tory Lanez. There it is. See, I said it began with a T. I knew it began with a T. So Tory Lanez. So the industry, the Live Nations of the world, the AG Lives of the world, they have to find a way to incorporate tours for their artists. Beyonce is still dropping on Meg Thee Stallion and all these remix songs. From that side, it's not, the streaming side isn't going to stop. So I think the touring side, the one-on-one fan connection, we're going to hurt as fans. We want to see these people live, but it's not going to hurt them as much, right? The touring money for the artists, they're going to have to figure that part out. The athlete side, the sports side is going to hurt, right? That's the side where, imagine us, how do we go ahead and, how do you get that level of, I'm in the zone in a closed atmosphere, right? I don't know if that can happen. Maybe these guys are professionals, they'll be able to do it. And then watch it on TV. That's what they're talking about. Soccer was already doing that prior to things really shutting down. So, Martin, it's going to be interesting to see. I don't have the answer right now, and it's really fluid. So we have to wait and see.
Now we're seeing, for example, fans, calling for live sport to return. Even some of the players calling for live sport to return. Right. But I haven't been in some of those, back rooms in pro organizations, etc. What do you think would be some of the biggest concerns for franchises and leagues and teams right now?
I mean, that one would be the epidemic, right? Coming back, right? Things didn't, if you think about it, things really didn't hit the fan until that Utah Jazz game.
Yeah.
Right? Really, basketball specifically. Because once that happened, it was like it was a domino effect. And they all jumped in, and then it was like, it almost felt planned. And it was like this thing went on. The athletes that are calling for it back, that's the normal reaction. But there's a lot of athletes, I would say, the ones that are more concerned about their families and making sure this is right, I think they would outweigh the others, right? The ones that are, the average fans on that side and the people that are protesting, that looks kind of stupid to me. It's all about safety. We got to let's follow. Each state is different. Each country is different. I love what your prime minister, how she went on and spoke so eloquent about the Caribbean nations.
Yeah.
And, once it happened, lockdown, let's go. I was speaking to a friend, Louise, shout out Louise, in Barbados. She was telling me that she couldn't get rum because they closed everything down.
Yep.
So I was like, you better contact your Ciroc friend. She's like, they can't ship. Everything's closed. I'm like, oh, man. So, I hate to say it again, but it's a wait and see approach. The proactiveness can only come from us thinking about, is there a way for us to continue on? Can we have the plan in place? They're opening up the facilities with some restrictions. You're not going to have the whole basketball operations staff. You're not going to have the whole football, American football. You have a lot more staffing to worry about, right? Basketball is less, baseball a little bit more, right? Hockey, think about all these sports. So social distancing, we're going to see that more than ever. You're going to see the marketing of all these masks come into play like you've never seen them before. We're already seeing that when people are out and about. The
I'm actually ordering my Green Bay Packers mask this week. I forgot to tell Marsha.
You got one already?
No, I'm ordering it.
You're ordering it. There you go. That's what I remembered about. That was the one thing I remember the most about you, Justin, is the fact that I was shocked that he was such a big Packers fan.
Okay.
Huge.
You're all the way on the rock. How are you a cheesehead? You know?
I think I'm gonna save that for like a later episode. But
Yeah.
you're one of the first people that I'll actually tell this to. I actually started as a Cowboys fan. Actually, a lot of people don't know that.
Well,
Okay.
And Brett Favre coming to the Packers in '92 just changed all of that. Like, I just fell in love with him. And, as you said, being in a small country like Barbados, I can, relate to a small place like Green Bay, and being there really is small compared to, like
Right.
New York and Miami.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so this being, a
So
small country,
it sounds like you
town.
jumped on the bandwagon, the Cowboy bandwagon.
Oh, but remember in '92, they were in the midst of their dynasty. So
Yes.
I jumped off when it was, kind of popular to be on the wagon. So,
Okay.
but I
How
can't
about
let my.
basketball? Who's your team in basketball for you guys?
Oh, I can't tell you that. We've been terrible for so long. I'm a diehard Phoenix Suns fan.
Okay.
Kadir.
It's been bad. It's been bad since Nash left. Yes, Kadir.
So that must have been tough to watch if you watched Last Dance last night with Barkley.
Yeah, it was I mean, when you go into that series as an older person, you kind of know, well, the stakes are against you. It's kind of unlikely that you're really going to beat those Bulls at that point in time. But
Right.
yeah. At that time, yeah, it was kind of like rooting, like, oh, we had the best record in the league. We had a great offense. We have Charles Barkley, Kevin Johnson and Dan Marley. So at that time, you're thinking, yeah, we can finally knock off Michael Jordan. But yeah,
So have you guys been talking about that show, The Last Dance?
Oh, yeah,
definitely.
well,
every
episode.
How phenomenal. I mean, Marsha, even from a marketing perspective, and this is a conversation, I mean, I'll throw it out there to you guys, the younger generation, we always have this conversation about who is the greatest of all time, right? But this last episode, if this didn't really put it in perspective for you on why Michael Jordan we consider, I mean, I love LeBron. I'll tell you, I remember as a kid, I played what you guys call football soccer. And that was my dad. I watched my dad playing in the islands. And then it was something about this guy, Michael Jordan, I kept hearing about. And once I picked up a basketball and I watched, I never turned back. I never went back to soccer. I never went back. And for me, Michael Jordan did that. That was that impact of where he was. Now think about, there wasn't social media in that day.
Nope.
So he was the marketing icon. He was Nike. He put Nike on the map. So when you talk about sports marketing, there's no way that you can't reference the Jordan brand, right? The deal that he got was unheard of on that side. The impact that he had, right, was unheard of.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? So obviously, back then, I was younger. I wasn't in media, and I didn't understand. But I think the documentary did it a bit of a disservice because I thought that they would spend more time on episode 5 really showing how Jordan really changed sports endorsement. Because it's so weird to look, it's so weird right now to look back at that and realize in 1984 Nike was a small, a small company,
a track and field company making track shoes essentially.
Yeah. And I think that was why they didn't do that though. I think they wanted to focus on him. They brought it in there subtly where they have a lot of footage, so they don't want to take away. That could be a whole segment of it.
Yeah.
They've already had several. There's several documentaries out on that with Nike and the Jordan brand. They didn't have to overdo it. All they had to do was let you know. They just had to hint it in front of you. And I think the way they did that, and even the way Kobe appreciated it when they brought him into the segment, right? That really hones in on him. So I call Jordan the undisputed GOAT, and I spell it GOAT, greatest of all time. When anybody brings anybody else into the conversation, like a Kobe, rest his soul, but a LeBron even is the biggest one that comes in. I call them the GOAT as well, but I spell it differently. I spell it GOT, right? GOT, if you can even call that GOAT. Greatest of this era. They were the greatest of their era, greatest of their own era. They did their thing. But what Jordan did, he surpassed that. He took it off the court. They both did, those other athletes that we're talking about, Kobe and LeBron. But Jordan did it to a magnitude that we haven't seen, right? Without having the additional,
like
things
social media
that Kobe and LeBron have, right? So the path was set. Kobe is a mirror. I don't like to say it almost, but he'd admit it, right? He patterned his whole game after that. And then he patterned his brand, but we didn't get to see the best of Kobe coming on, because that's what he was doing, the writer, the dad, what he was going to do for women's sports. So he had enough to still continue to build his own. But Jordan set that bar so high, and it was still going, right, in terms of team ownership. So LeBron will do great things as well, but Jordan is just on a whole other plateau. And that's, to me, and some people have shared this, when you go back to who you're going to take on a team, if we're just talking player, his physical specimen of LeBron, yes, it's great, but Jordan still had that killer tenacity, right? That tenacious spirit of what he was going to do. And we're seeing it in this documentary. So that's just something that I thought I'd jump in when we talk about and watching it. So I'm loving it. And the fact that you talk about 10, we get 10 episodes. That's your goatness right there. So
now, Craig, I'm glad you mentioned, this sport-related content, as well as earlier you touched on the impact on digital engagement, streaming, esports, etc.
Yes.
So you're seeing audiences clamoring for more content, and leagues and teams trying to meet that through, not only archival footage, but you're getting behind the scenes, interviews with players, training with players, etc.
Yeah.
Do you think this kind of digital content will become the norm going forward now?
Well, yes, right away. We're already seeing that those leagues, I mean, the NBA, if you want to say them again, they were really taking the lead on that. If you kind of put them up with all the leagues, and not just in the US, but I'm talking about on the global side, you got to add in Premier Leagues and all these various things around the world, the globe. They were up there. They were holding their own. Then you have individual teams and players that also impact their team they played for to help in a social media world. But I think content is going to continue to drive, right, as much as they can. We've already seen the leagues kind of taking a player and allowing them to go ahead and take over the NBA
social
Instagram
media platform
for a day, right? Take over this platform. Take care of the Facebook platform. They understand that. You meet them where they're at. We have eyeballs. Everybody is watching. Everybody's looking for content. I mean, man, we've been having so much fun from a music standpoint. It's tough to say when people are still stuff, but I mean, we've been locked down for somewhat, and we're adhering. Those that are actually adhering to it, right, and you're staying home. Yes, you're staying busy, but at some point, I want to vibe a little bit. So what do? We're finding, people doing their quarantine live DJ sets, and we're getting thrown back. We're seeing people breaking records, and I watched Allison Hines the other day. I supported Allison when she did hers the other day, and it's amazing. I did one a few weeks back where we just wanted to test it out, and I took over our Johnson & Wales Instagram for my students in one of my concert class to show them that we could do this, and we have more time where we're going to plan for the one that's coming up next Friday, where we're going to do it via a Zoom platform instead of the Instagram, because when you use these lives, you're at liberty of the network as a whole. So we want to try something different. But yes, we're going to see a lot more engagement. We're going to see performances embedded. We're going to see so much. We're seeing it already, but everybody's going to outdo it. How can I go ahead and step this up a step further? Yeah.
Now, I couldn't let you go, Craig, without asking you a question specific to the Caribbean. Prior to COVID-19 and this global pandemic, a lot of the discussion in the Caribbean was centered around the development of a sporting industry and a viable sporting industry, which could contribute to, economic gains, gross domestic product, etc. What do you think needs to be done, or what needs to be in place for there to be a viable, sustainable sporting industry being created in Barbados and the Caribbean?
Barbados and the Caribbean. I'm going to stay positive because everything is positive vibes, right? So 2015, I had a chance to do a keynote in Colombia, in Bogota, Colombia. That was an amazing experience for me because, I don't speak Spanish fluently, it's a little bit living in South Florida, un poquito. And they gave me a translator, and to be able, the keynote was really on the global expansion in Latin America and the Caribbean, on the professional sporting industry, and is it saturated? How will we do this? And back then we touched on corruption, right, from all the various boards, and just as a whole, especially looking at soccer. And right after that, you end up seeing them crack the whip, and we saw a lot of people come down on it. The Olympics, after the Olympics, why do you build these facilities and then you don't have it really properly staffed? So to have the right infrastructure in place to be able to have a sustainable model, you have to, there's a lot of things, and you have so many quality people, but the government has to buy in, right? The government has to buy in. Who's in that moment? Who's your minister of sports in that moment? And I don't want to use the word corruption, but that's in there. And sometimes I've still spoken to various islands. I've had people contact me. I don't know if I should share this. I'll share it. It doesn't have to do with you guys, but
come on.
It was an artist that is very, very known to your particular island, and they wanted this particular individual on another island, but they didn't have the facilities in place to really have this individual perform. But you're hiring me as a client, so I'm going to do my best to go ahead and come through for you. But I knew that this wasn't going to happen, so there was no way I was getting excited on the potential commission from this gig, because I knew it just wasn't feasible. But the fact that they would spend this amount of money for this one individual, when there were so many other things that are needed in this particular island, I was shocked. And this is some years ago, but you still see some of those things now. In the middle, I've been donating I have several basketball hoops. Well, I had, now some of them are pretty much heading out. I think, did we lose Justin? So I've been
probably.
He's coming back. So I've
he's
been
back.
to donate them. Hey, we got your back.
Yeah. Well, as I tell you, every Monday at some point between 8 and 9.
The Monday.
Monday, right?
So I was telling Marsha that I own several portable basketball hoops, and the youth and teens, they really weren't playing outdoors like they used to. But 3-on-3 is kind of coming back. We're seeing that in Ice Cube's Big 3 League. And the outdoors, if you build it into a tournament, they may come. Well, I didn't have time. I had to give up some type of projects. When you're writing a book and you're teaching and you're doing so many different things, something has to give. So I didn't want them to go to waste. So I identified various places that I've worked before and done different charitable endeavors. I was speaking. I said, look, I'm going to donate these to you, said island. You just have to pay for the shipping and get them over there. These retail for probably, $1,500 brand new. And then they have to be shipped, and the labor and all of this, they have to get over there. They're here for you. I just need somebody to pick them up, ship them, and get over. But I'm going to donate them to you, right? You can build a court, you can put them somewhere. And I'm sharing this with you because that alone was difficult, right? Difficult to say because you have to have individuals on the ground that can kind of see the bigger picture. This would do this. So Anguilla jumped on it. Shout out to Anguilla. I had a former student over there. They flew me down along with an old timer by the name of Wally Jones. And we did a basketball clinic over there for him. And I saw what was on the ground. They still needed these facilities. So I shipped 2 down for them. They set it up for him, and then ended up getting hit with, the pandemic. But, when all is said and done, they'll have, courts. I saw what happened in Bahamas, right? How heavily they were hit. And I reached out, and we had a student, and I said, they're here when you're ready. You guys remember Trayvon Martin.
Yes,
Martin. We donated a couple to him, to their foundation, to be in the inner city. So I wanted to make sure wherever I was donating them, it was almost like it's a piece of me because I had them for so many years. We used to do outdoor tournaments, and I wanted to make sure that they really went to certain people, certain charitable endeavors and individuals that could really make use out of these courts, not just somebody's backyard. That makes sense. So I share all of that to say, once you have the individuals like yourselves on the ground, you have the people now in government that can kind of see that. Now you have to have the people that are with the facilities that can say, we're not going to be selfish because we need to have this and that day. We can open this up. And now you have to have the private sector come in play and say, we want to support this initiative because research shows that if you do this, X amount of youth or population will have this avenue to be able to hone in on their skills, to build it up. Why is it that I can't see Barbados in the Olympics? I should be able to have that vision, right? It shouldn't just be, considered locally and doing great here, or all the smaller nations, right? Why can't we have more athletes that are proud and saying, I'm not from New York. I'm really from Barbados. I'm from I'm from some of these smaller islands, which you won't hear it until you do the research and you find out their parents are from there. They should be proud to say I'm Caribbean American and rep our small islands. Like more, Bahamas, they're doing that. Their programs are bringing more and more of these guys coming out. So once you have to have the people on the ground to really champion it, and then you have to have the private sector meet with government. I think there are more and more places that are on it. I love what Petra Roach is doing on promoting Barbados throughout the world. She does a phenomenal job. Shout out Petra. And those type of individuals, if it makes sense to get heads in beds and people down, she's all for it. So I'm ready to come back to Barbados when it makes sense to do something. It doesn't have to just be basketball. It has to be, I love education, right? Where can we find where it makes sense to kind of go back? And, gone are the days, unfortunately, when, back then I could call up one of these old time NBA guys and, they're still young, but if they're retired, anybody watching the audience now, they're old time, phenomenal league. But I could tell them, look, we'll take care of your expenses and you guys would come on down. Now it's, you got to deal with a lot of the managers and the owners and inflations. And, there's more of this that has to come into play. Some may do it still. I mean, there's some good ones that will still do it. But when you go the formal route, you got to have the sponsor to underwrite those costs. So it can happen. You just have to kind of put it all together.
Any other thing from you, Justin?
No, I mean, there's so much more I could ask, so many things. And Craig.
Yeah.
But we unfortunately have time restrictions. But
yes.
No,
most definitely we have to have you back, Craig, because I'm here. I have 10 questions here. As you see, I kept looking to my right, and it's because I was tapping my computer at questions to ask them. If we go on, this will go on for 2 hours.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, I love it, guys. I wish you guys continued success whenever you're ready for me to come back on and or talk about the future. We can do that. I'm here, only a phone call away.
Yeah, because there's so much. I mean, Marsha, every week, I think we get into a discussion of where are we falling down in terms of understanding sports, not as recreation, but the business of sports, as Marsha said. We are not understanding the business side of it, the entertainment side, because
from your perspective as media professionals, as educators on the other side, it would really make sense for you guys to jump in on a conference, right? To really bring that to life and host that. And that's something that, I would love to help you guys with, but that's something that should happen. You should have the meeting of the minds and bring these individuals, right, that can really start to be change makers when they start to realize the economic impact. And it goes beyond cricket. I love cricket. Shout out to cricket as a sport. But we're in 2020. And it can be all those. Soccer, right? Soccer is probably the next one. Basketball is there. All sports. If you're kind of building up your Olympic athletes and you're thinking about track and field, and I'm sure you guys have athletes on that side.
Yeah.
All of them can kind of come together because we all have similarities, but we have to, too many times everybody pigeonholes themselves into their sport. If it's not my sport, I don't like it, I'm not focusing on it. But if we can kind of all say that, going back to my opening analogy of that umbrella is entertainment, and each of those falls under there. Sports can even be broken down even more. And where is that pie? If you're not thinking about esports, and you're just thinking about the sports that people know and everybody is against this, right? Because as parents, I see it in my kids, my young kids. But I understand that, hey, if they're practicing enough, there's 13-year-old kids that are winning $750,000, right?
Yeah.
In these tournaments, in various games. There is now an NBA 2K, league.
Yeah.
It's a league where these guys, they train, they do all of this like any other athlete. They are athletes. Don't say they're not athletes because they train. So that's where it is. We just have to have forward-thinking people, and you got to keep pushing.
Well, I hope you understand. You've committed to a conference sometime this year.
Hey, I'm ready.
Well, 2021, Justin. 2021. This year is,
challenging.
Yes.
We're going to get the University of Cave Hill. We're going to go ahead and jump in. Johnson and Wales is coming down, and we're going to bring scholars from all over. Why not? Right? Let's have inter-island. You have to have these conversations like that. That's what has to happen. Everybody helps, and maybe you rotate after a year. I'm giving you the blueprint is there. Because people, do they really want to work with each other? Right? Everybody's kind of like, we're in our box. I'm outside. I tell my students it's outside the box, right? You have to, and now more so than ever, people are pivoting. People have lost their jobs. The guy that you had on last time, he has to think about how do I pivot if this isn't going to happen. So those are the conversations that we have to have. And, you know, I've been in industry, you know, Justin was being nice earlier. Basically, he was calling me old is what he is. You had a lifetime of experience. He's calling me old, right? But I still, I'm there, right? We started young and we're in it. And I still have that energy to keep going, because once that energy kind of slows down, then you fall and it's like, you start to let things go to the wayside. And that could be something else, right? Who are the people that are employed in these places? You know, if you've been in, I don't want no disrespect to our elder statesmen and those individuals or the younger ones, but we have to all come together no matter what. If you're Generation Z to baby boomer to the Y to X to wherever we are, we all have great ideas and we have to understand each other as a human race. And when we understand people, then you can have the right team. You formulate your team like a GM. And then, you know, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but that's what it takes, Martha.
You really are.
That's what it takes. I was
about to say, you are really preaching to the choir, because we have these conversations weekly.
Yes.
Well, Craig, thank you so very much for joining us. For our viewers, that's Craig Skillen, a man with many titles, currently a professor in sport entertainment and event management at Johnson & Wales University. He's the founder of The Influencer. He's worked in talent booking, event production. He was a group events manager with the Miami Heat, and so much more. Craig, thank you for having us. And of course, we will thank you for being with us, and we look forward to having you again here on This Just In.
This Just In. I love it. Follow the conversation. Yeah. You can find me on LinkedIn at Craig Skill, right? You got to put it out there. So let's keep this going. Let's keep the conversation going.
Great. No problem. Thank you for joining us.
Continue practicing social distancing, Craig, and we'll link up again sometime soon.
I love it. All right, guys. Respect. Have a good one.